vulnerability, by the other hand, is gonna give you more authority, because being vulnerable is not easy at all, but it's a very, very, very courageous act.
I'm very passionate about this topic, shifting from what I call the 20th century leader to the 21st century leader, and the need for us as leaders to remove the S, the superhuman label that we thought we had when we were in the 20th century, as we come into being more vulnerable, being more transparent, and willing to ask the question, willing to say, hey, you know what? I don't know everything. I need those around me to contribute, to challenge, to give feedback if we're going to move forward.
Also, I see that a lot of clients right now, they are using, for example, ChatGPT for answering some questions, some hard ones. And they are like, oh, you asked me about my life purpose. Or actually, you told me to define my leadership purpose statement. Do not limit yourself or put in a place where you think you don't need it anymore. Like, keep being open and surrendering to these kind of processes.
All right, well, welcome Team ET to another incredible week. And I have to say, welcome to the year 2024, the first week of 2024, at least when this recording is released. As Mariana and I are sitting here, we haven't reached that time yet, but that's when the recording will be released. So welcome to the start of the new year. Welcome to the ET Project, where we have the opportunity to sit with world leaders and influencers and chat about their journey and their experiences along the way. So, you know, we've kicked off this year in the best possible way, and we've hand-selected our guest, Miss Mariana Macias. Mariana, very happy to welcome you to the show.
Wayne, thank you so much for having me here. First of all, I am also very excited that right now we are recording like in future tense. This is so exciting that we're already in 2024. So
Fantastic.
such an amazing way to start and kick off the year. So thank you for having me here.
We chose Mariana as the episode guest because Team ET, we're going to be talking about you as a leader, and that's what Mariana excels at. So you, the leader, first, we're probably going to do a little introspective gazing, if you like, for the purpose of deepening self-awareness. Then, as the leader of others and the impact that you have on performance, as well as building culture within the organization. So, Mariana, I'm going to hit you with a very broad question to start with, but if I look at, you know, what you do and what you're certified as, you're an executive coach, but in ontological, mindfulness, and ecological areas. So I want to start with this question. Apologies in advance. Feel free to answer it as best you can, but I feel that it's going to set the scene for the conversation. So we'll jump into the detail as we go through the rest of the discussion. The question is, how does your method of coaching support leaders for both, I guess, a personal as well as a professional growth perspective? So there's the opening shot across the bow for 2024.
That's such a powerful question. I would say that first of all, you know, I would like to say that the kind of coaching that I do, I do think that, of course, right now there are a lot of propositions and offers in the table on executive coaching, but I am very specialized and focused on performance. Right. But let's talk about performance, right? Because when I introduce the word, I am an executive performance coach, a lot of people just go ahead into the actions, into the tactics, right? Yes. Into the, so you're gonna like measure me, you're gonna like measure my performance, but relate it into the technical stuff. And I'm like, we are losing something big about the word of performance. That is like, performance is not only our actions or our operational or our tactical or technical actions, you know? Yes. Performance is bigger than that, and it also includes the part of our human skills or soft skills, if you like to call it like that, but also mostly about our attitude and our behaviors. And of course, our attitudes and our behaviors also come with all the part of the mindset, you know? but also the mindset come with emotions. So I found this topic so beautiful because when I say that I work in order to improve top leaders, their performance, I am including the coaching in a holistic way.
Right.
So you mentioned it correctly, right? I studied and I certified myself into the part of ontological, which is the study of the being. And it's all about powerful questions. It's all about questioning, why are we here? What's our life purpose? What
Yes.
are our main drivers, values? What do we appreciate? What do we care about? What do we actually live for, right? Our why, the powerful why. And then, of course, whenever I touch the part of the ecological, we're talking about all of the relationships that we actually, as human beings, we have in life.
Right.
And we're not talking only about the relationships with our employees or with our loved ones or with the human relationships at all. It's also the relationship, for example, us relating with time, us relating with our mindset, with our emotions, with the food, with our habits, and also with our thoughts, you know? So we, if you see it like that, we actually have a relationship with everything that surrounds us and exists, you know, among us. And then lastly,
Sorry.
yeah, then lastly, I, of course, that I cover like all of the part, as I mentioned, of the mindset, but this is very, very important as well. So yes, I do give some methodologies. I do give some tools, because also that is very important, not only to receive breakthroughs, but then what are you doing with every single breakthrough that you are receiving, right? You need to be able to put it in practice. So
Right.
you practice and you stimulate what you are discovering about yourself, because, you know, and you better than anyone knows this, the leadership kind of coaching, executive coaching, is just a process of self-awareness and a beautiful journey for you as a leader to actually get in touch and recognize a lot of areas of improvement and gaps, but also with an amazing and beautiful version, you know, of you.
Wonderful. You answered that so eloquently. Thank you. It was a very broad question, but as I said, I think it sets up our conversation nicely. So we've prized the lid off a little bit on the topic. Let's now backtrack and find out a little bit more about who you are. Who is Mariana, and what led you on the journey that you're on?
Well, yes, of course. Let's go a little steps backward about how do I start it, right?
Yeah.
So to be very, very honest, I come from the background of marketing, right? So I studied marketing as a career. I actually was developing on that. I even had a master's on that. And then because I love marketing and I'm a very sports enthusiast, I was just like thinking, okay, maybe my path is going to be like marketing in sports, right? Why not? But then, you know, life is beautiful and life will always take you to the right places in the right times. So I started discovering coaching, right? I was working as an intern for a coaching firm. And that was the first time actually that I was introduced into this concept, that at first I was just like, oh, okay, it's kind of interesting. Why not? I'm a very curious soul. So I was like, okay, let's just go deeper and let's study about this. And when I was doing all of the marketing things and marketing strategies, and actually like also like the sales strategies for this coaching firm, I started also to be very curious, in fact, to say, hey, I want to like, you know, volunteer myself for actually having or initiating my own coaching process with a coach. So I was thinking like, I think if I actually get the experience, I'm going to be able to sell it better, or I'm going to be able to
Right.
understand it better. So I can't imagine what was like, literally, you can't even imagine what was the impact and the growth that I had in my life the season that I was being coached. And then I saw the real power of a very good coaching. And I was like, wow, if all of these changes and results happened in my life and for me, I can't keep this for myself, you know? So I started getting like even extra and extra curious. And then I was just like, you know, getting to convince myself like, okay, maybe I'll do it as I get older, when I just like become a CMO. And then as part of my soft skills, I'm going to be a coach as well. But I'm going to be all about in the marketing industry. But then, you know, life again hits you hard. And it's like, no, you know, when it's your purpose, you know it. And was your call. So I had a lot of calls. I have a lot of different moments in my life that I was drawn once and over again to be in positions and actually opportunities where I was very, very close to coaching processes, to coaching leaders, you know, in the industry. And then I was like, okay, I'm just only gonna, but for curiosity, like certified and doing it in a professional way. So I started writing my book. I started like actually, you know, getting the certification by the ICF. And then I started like actually asking myself, well, leadership and organizational cultures was something that was always very attractive to me. That's part of why I wanted to be like a CMO in an older time, because I really wanted to actually be a leader and be developing that kind of job and actually being in teams, and the organizational cultures were very attractive to me. So I was like kind of, oh, okay, what if I just mix all of that and I start studying, and actually I get very, very professional in the part of executive coaching. So that's when actually I hit the industry, I hit that niche. And of course, then performance came along. And when I discovered like performance and how this impact in cultures and all of the organizational development and psychological safety and all of these beautiful, beautiful concepts, I was like all in, you know. I was studying so hard. I was like learning every day, and I still do that, right? I think that a part of being a coach that eats in the executive coaching arena, you need to be all the time keeping updated, because everything is changing so fast as leaders, you know. So you always want to have like the fresh vision and innovation. So that's a little bit how I started like the journey here. It's been already 6-7 years like that I've been doing it formally. And I've been having like, yes, the blessing to be collaborating with from big companies international, which I'm very, very, very grateful that I've been able to learn from big companies, but also, you know, helping startups, or also just helping performers, you know, like owners of companies, or actually leaders that they just want to like upgrade or start practicing, or actually, you know, preparing themselves for achieving or getting into their next leadership level.
And excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, we will edit that little part out, but excuse me. Okay, so you mentioned your internship. Was that with Lois? Gosh, I think I got it. Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, you mentioned your internship. Was that with Lois Barth?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. Probably the listeners outside of America aren't as familiar with Lois, but very, very popular, very well-known female coach, speaker around America. So nice internship. You also mentioned about your book, and is it in English as well as Spanish? Okay.
Yes, actually the fun part, or the curious part is, I started like one of my first clients were American, you know, like big American companies. So that for me was such a challenge from start. I was like, oh, okay, you know, I thought I was going to have Mexican, I'm from Mexico City, by the way. So like Mexican clients at first, but no,
Right.
actually I started coaching American clients.
Okay. And the title of the book in
Yeah,
English?
I got a story to share.
I got a story to share. So if I understand correctly, it's about your journey.
Yeah, well, this is a beautiful question, okay? Because then you need to buy the book and actually like figure out what is it about. But yeah, like in a nutshell, this is actually one of the most important moments in my life that I just happened to had an accident. And well, it was not an accident. I will call it an incident. I was kidnapped for 2 days. So
Wow.
this incident was life-changing for me, but also life-threatening. And this was the moment in my life where before that, well, after that, I take the leap and the action of switching careers and starting from scratch and actually getting professional into the coaching industry. Because I mentioned I had the beautiful experience with Lois Barth, and I was, yes, I'll do this. But when I get older, or like, yeah, in 6-10 years later,
Right.
and then this incident happened, and that was a very powerful wake-up call in terms of life is too short, and I just need to start doing what I love and what actually makes me really, really, really vibe and ignites me. So I just gotta do it right now. There's no other best moment than today, you know?
Incredible. You're also in the process, I believe, of a second book. How far away are you from the release?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would say that I am getting ready for having it end of this year, which
Wow.
was last year, if you're listening to us. So like December 2023, I'll be finishing the whole editing thing. And then I'll guess the publishing will be this year, 2024.
Yeah.
I would say if everything goes so well, that it will be May.
May, okay. And are
Yeah.
you allowed, are you able to share the title at this stage, or you want to keep that under wraps?
Of course. No, I mean, I'm not 100% sure that this is gonna be the formal title, but the
Right.
message, it is the core message, and it's like your classroom as a top performer in life.
Okay. All right. And I know you've done a lot of research and you've been having lots of conversations with industry leaders. So the book itself is about human performance or top performance, as you mentioned. Um, what can readers expect? Like, what will they learn from the book?
It is gonna be a literally eye-opening book for all of the top performers out there, because
Mm,
I'm gonna be like, you know, like interviewing great people, very, very
yeah,
successful leaders, but in a very vulnerable side of them, that they will share, yes, I am a top performer, but this has been my lessons that I've been getting to actually deal and learn over and over again, plus my challenges in life, because this is real. We all want to be top performers, we all
yeah,
want the performance in life, but it's hard to maintain ourselves, calling ourselves and building this identity of top performers. So
mm,
I'm giving like these different chapters, which are all of the part of performance, but also in a very deep and personal way. For example, the impact that your relationship with your father plays in this role, right?
mhm,
And then
mhm,
the impact of the discipline. So we're going to be talking about all of the different aspects and scope of performance, but in a way that it's going to be, you know, sensitive and touching these vibes, but mostly understanding that as a top performer, even though you're great and you're made for accomplishing greatness, you still have some downs and lows and a
yeah.
classroom that you will always be like, you know, having hard tests, which is fine.
It sounds like a great book. Maybe we'll have to get together once it comes out and I have a read of it. Maybe we can do another recording and chat
Of course,
about the book.
of
I
course.
believe, I mean, you've done an enormous amount of study and coaching, exposure. You've done courses on at Mind Valley. You've done a whole host of things. And I believe you've just been accepted, or you're about to start with John Matone in one of his
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah, I finished it already. Like that was
Oh,
September.
really? Okay.
September. Yeah. Yeah. It was so exciting, and I learned a lot of things because, again, you know, I always try to maintain myself updated, but also
Yes.
learning from the best of the best. I think that's also something very important in life. Learning from the people you
Yeah.
actually you know, admire, and that they are well positioned in the industry.
That's a great segue. I was going to ask you this a little bit later, but we might as well touch on it now. For me, books are my passion. They're my way of staying current as well as research. But books really feed me and make give me the knowledge and the wisdom. I'm wondering, for your journey, what is it that you do apart from studying through courses like this? What is it that you do to stay current?
Well, this is something that I love to do, and it's being curious and reaching out to people and to big
Mm,
leaders that maybe I don't even know them, but I just see them. I just like research a little bit about
right.
themselves, you know, their career path, their trajectory in life, and then I just invite them for a coffee or maybe for a Zoom call, and then I it's like a little mini interview, but also I love hearing like, hey, I don't know, I know you don't know me, but you know, what is it something that you are very proud about your journey, or what has been your biggest challenge so far as a leader. So I try to always have conversations with leaders about in different industries, not necessarily someone that I know or someone that I have access to. And
Mm,
that's also the tricky part of doing this, because I need to be reaching out and I need to be, like curious and creative in many ways that I can have access to them. For example, also investing in going to networking events,
yeah,
like big forums, big business forums where I'll have access to a lot of leaders. So those kind of things. And I also think that traveling is one of my biggest passions that helped me doing this, because then I travel and then I go to places where I know that leaders are gonna be, right? Like, I don't know, like book clubs, or maybe I just go to the bars near the universities.
yes.
So yeah, you never know. Or like to alumni events, from big Ivy Leagues events. So yeah, I try to always be creative and travel and meet new people and have conversations with different kind of personalities.
It is such an important factor for us in our profession that we do try and stay current. And I think the takeaway message from what you just said is it's something we have to be intentional about. We have to work at, and it's an ongoing, it's a constant. So yeah, very, very interesting. Let's generalize now a little bit and look at leaders of today, and maybe a broad question again, but how they're doing overall. So perhaps starting from the perspective of being self-aware and learning how to harness and realize their full potential. The people you're working with, the different leaders you speak with, what perhaps are some of the challenges that they're facing in achieving that?
Oh, I love this question. So I see that this is a recurrent pattern. I must
Mm,
be able to, yeah, to dare myself to say that. But in a certain way, I do actually see it very often. And the first one is vulnerability. I think this is a huge topic, and I think that a lot of leaders, and more the one that comes from old schools, or like, that have a big credibility
yeah.
and maybe a big name as well. They are very used to say, okay, I already have a voice. I'm already someone credible out there. So, people are going to follow me, or people are going to listen to me. But guess what? Even those experienced and amazing leaders, have some vulnerable moments, or actually doubts, for taking some decisions, or actually, let's just face it, some mistakes as well.
Mm,
And when they are talking and having conversations, or even asking to the people closer to the real problems, I've been seeing a lot of leaders facing and using this last element, like literally they use it as the last possible tool or scenario, which is like, oh, okay, then I think I need to be vulnerable now, because I'm not getting the answers that I would like. I'm not getting the truth out there. My people are telling me everything is fine, but that doesn't seem reflected on results, or that doesn't seem in numbers, right? So I really need to get to the core, what's happening here. So why people are not telling me the truth. And
mm,
and I mean it. You can be an excellent leader and people will admire you and respect you. That's not even like questionable. But so many times, if you really want to know the truth, you also need to open this safe space, but also through vulnerability. It's not
yeah.
enough saying you're someone that you admire, so then you'll trust me. No, people actually will be open on accepting their mistakes, or actually asking, and raising the hand and saying, actually, I didn't understand your last instructions,
Yeah.
or I am having a hard time in following you here. Your pace is so fast. You are very, very, very strategic, but maybe not me, or maybe not my team. So we just need a little bit of grace in here. So asking for those things, or opening even the space to be one-on-one, clear and candid with the leader, requires from the part of the leader to actually be vulnerable.
Mm,
So I think that vulnerability, it's a huge topic, and I think that a lot of leaders actually are scared, that's a word as well, to be vulnerable, because they might have some beliefs as well that they will be like, oh, vulnerability is going to affect my authority or even my credibility. And
yeah.
not in that way, right? Because vulnerability, by the other hand, is going to give you more authority,
Yeah.
because being vulnerable is not easy at all, but it's a very, very, very courageous act.
You've opened Pandora's box for me. This is my topic. I'm very passionate about this topic, shifting from what I call the 20th century leader to the 21st century leader, and the need for us as leaders to remove the S, the superhuman label that we thought we had when we were in the 20th century, as we come into being more vulnerable, being more transparent, and willing to ask the question, willing to say, hey, you know what? I don't know everything. I need those around me to contribute, to challenge, to give feedback if we're going to move forward. So it's I'm so on board with you here. We could talk for hours on this topic alone, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is the principle as well for something else that I see a lot with leaders, and it's like not letting go the control, right? Because they want to be in everything at the same moment, at the same time, and sometimes capacity, it's one of their problems. It's like, yes, you are amazing. Yes, you are on top of everything. Yes, you can, and you have the capability, but that doesn't mean that the capacity, you know? And sometimes if you're not able to actually trust and be vulnerable and say like, hey, listen, I really want to, and I need to listen to you guys because you are the ones closer to the problem and closer to the problem that you're challenging every single day while I'm here maybe in another cloud getting like with a lot of things in my hands. So I need you guys to tell me more, you know. That's okay as well, to accept that as a leader.
Yeah.
I can't be in every single places and I do not know every single piece of my company. That's also okay to accept, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a huge topic, and we're only going to scratch the surface, unfortunately, today. But I guess this feeds beautifully into the self-awareness aspect about really being aware of how you are performing as a leader, how you're behaving as a leader.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think it's very you know, that creates awareness and that I've seen that happens in this space with my coaching sessions is the fact that actually leaders realize the big impact that their own leadership have in their
Right.
cultures.
Mm.
You know, because sometimes we're just like, yeah, I need to be a big leader for my people. I need to be an amazing leader for results. I need to be I'm an amazing leader for performance or for the stakeholders or even for the investor's sake. But no, you know, it's deeper than that. Leadership has the completely and direct impact in your culture, you know? And
Yes.
sometimes leaders are like, dude, I think this is a culture problem. Okay, then you're saying that you're the problem, you know? Like it's deep when literally leaders want to excuse everything and saying, oh no, it's just like I have a terrible culture, or I don't know why, you know, I don't have the people because the culture, like, it's critical. Well, then you must ask yourself, how
Mm.
is your leadership, right? Because if you're
Yes.
defining culture as critical, then your leadership, you know, I'm not saying it's going to be 100% critical, but it might be something there because it is related. And when leaders go into this deep awareness moment, an aha moment, breakthrough, whatever you want to call it, they are just like, oh yes, the style and the leadership, you know, style that I am bringing in the table is impacting directly and hard into
Mm.
my culture.
In terms of culture, so it's easy for us to look to the very top of the organization and look at the CEO, the C-suite executives, and look to them for examples. But you know, the largest number of leaders sit in the middle of the organization or below as it cascades down. And my own experience is quite often it's easy to feel that we don't have enough capacity as a leader to really influence culture. So, listening to what you're saying, we would argue that that's definitely not the case.
Mm.
Yeah,
No, yeah, no, I think what you just said is very important. Like, can you elaborate more? So
yeah, for
I
sure. So, as we're sitting, let's say we're at middle management, let's say we're running a division, and our bosses above us may not be demonstrating that cultural direction that we believe is required. And we want to make a change, but perhaps we don't feel that we have enough clout, enough ability, enough capacity ourselves to really influence it. And therefore we don't try. We say, you know, the culture is what it is, and you know, we're stuck in this merry-go-round. So I'm just
No, and
wondering, yeah.
no, yeah, like that's totally true and very powerful. Sometimes they, as leaders, they just think that it's a cultural problem.
Yeah.
And so let's just let human resources fix it. Or let's just like invest in a lot of workshops and that's it, you know, or let's just take all my people to these retreat. I don't know. And what I'm trying to say is like, no, first, for sure, you need to be able to say, people are, yes, I just mentioned, like people are always looking up, but
Yes.
also know that people behaviors in general, right, are influencing the culture. So at the end of the day, the culture, it's like you know, like the average, or actually the sum of all of the behaviors
Yes.
that you have from your people in your company that are being allowed, and by that they are being repeated.
Yeah, and I think this feeds nicely into the second part of that question that I mentioned at the very beginning, is the impact that leaders have on others in helping others to reach their full potential. So not only the leader reaching their full potential through self-awareness and growth, but the leader's role to help their teams find their full potential. And I'm wondering, I can imagine there's many challenges you come across with a leader trying or wanting to achieve that, but struggling to.
No, yeah, yeah. And also you see something very important here. You mentioned as well, I do believe that we can talk about managers, and then we can talk about leaders.
Yes.
And then I would say that one main difference, you know, there are a lot of differences certainly between a manager and a leader, but one that is key for me, and you actually mentioned it so good, it's like saying the manager, yes, he do whatever he can with with what he has, you know. So he sees the potential in people, or not even the potential, but he sees the capabilities or the capacities of people, and try to actually administrate it. Try to actually say, okay, you're going to do this, or you will do that, and whatever. So try to actually, you know, manage it like that. But then the leader, it's able to identify, and it's part of their duty every day to see and identify, maybe your capacity is great, but you're not in the right role, or you're not in the right position. So for them, it's not only managing the talent, but actually working with the talent for taking them to the next level, for actually developing this potential, and showing them, like actually opening this safe space for them to thrive and to keep exploring themselves, and telling them, hey, you are made for greatness, and maybe let me help you as a leader. Maybe this is not your place, but what about this or that? Because I see and I identify your strengths, but also I identify and I'm very conscious about your gaps or your weaknesses, and let me help you address them, and let me help you to also be aware of them, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken with a couple of leaders recently, and they've opened my eyes to a concept that has blindsided me all my career. That is looking at your employee's journey just as you would as a sales leader looking at the customer's journey, and looking at the touch points that the employee has within the organization, their role and their tasks, and seeing how you as a leader can influence and improve on and close the gaps where those touch points are not as at the level that they should be. And I love that thinking, and you're talking about a similar thing here. So very nice. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. We've already spoken about your role as an intern. Um, what I'm wondering now is, you very focused on coaching, of course, which is fantastic. How do you bring about through coaching the needed changes in leaders that you engage with?
Of course, like I think that part of the coaching, you know, it's also doing this transformation around them. not only within themselves, but that transformation for themselves has an impact in the whole organization or their people.
Right.
So part of course, doing the one-on-one coaching, I think that one of the biggest things that I also enjoy doing, that I don't call these like one-on-one coaching, but I actually call it like cultural transformations, you know?
Right.
I love guiding, if that's a word, or maybe just like going hand to hand, you know, with the leader, but also with the team and with the whole organization for creating these cultural change and cultural transformations. Is that I don't want to be like the coach that, you know, like give something for a season or will give you like lots of questions and lots of methodologies and then disappear. I think that actually, you know, or maybe just being hired for giving one workshop. Let's be real. One workshop, you know, for the people, it's not going to be even useful. They're going to be maybe entertained, which that's nice, but they are not going to be equipped. And I am looking for equipping people, not entertaining them, you know, at all. And I think that being part of transformational cultures, and then I wouldn't call it consulting, but I think that part of the journey as well is give some feedback as well of to the leader, but also by me interacting with the whole teams and with the whole areas and being like these eyes. I always say that this is beautiful because I am like an ally or like a business partner for them as well. And it's only you and me. The benefit is not going to be only you and me, but the benefit is going to be also for others. But let me be this fresh eyes for you that will give you some vision or that will give you some insights that maybe you, because you are in the middle of the pace every single day, you're missing out. And I think that's beautiful as well.
Absolutely. You bring a different perspective, perhaps, through we in Australia we talk about the fly on the wall principle, and you act like the fly, maybe a nicer creature, but you act like the person sitting on the wall observing the scenario play out, and you can bring a different perspective through your observations, which is great.
That's true. That's true. I prefer calling it like you're the beautiful eyes, you know, like some external eyes, you know, instead of being a fly in the wall. But yeah, but yeah, of course I get the point. Also, I think like shadowing is so powerful. How many leaders, you know, are very, very, very like you know, get very benefited when you have like a shadow there that actually then is able to say, hey, listen, did you observe what happened when you do this or this, or actually what would be possible if you start using this or that with your people? Let's just try it and check the reactions together, right? So being, yes, also like shadowing, I love doing that.
Yeah, that comes back to the vulnerability, preparedness or willingness to open up and to be that transparent, of course. And many leaders are very nervous when somebody talks about, well, let me just come with you and I'll observe and just give you some feedback. I mean, that tends to send shivers down many leaders' backs. So you're also very big on the approach around questioning. To quote something that I read about what you wrote, you said questions are the genesis of human growth and expansion. Right?
Oh yeah.
How often do you, and you ask the question to leaders, how often do you create safe spaces for questioning and pondering? I love that. I think that's very insightful for a leader to internalize that challenge, because they are really so powerful. How do you use the questions yourself when you're coaching?
So the questions for myself or whether or when I am coaching with when I yeah. So basically I think that in all of my sessions I need to do questions, like, to be honest, because the pure essence of coaching are questions. You can't say this was a coaching session if you didn't question the person, or actually it's just, you know, put the seed and then the person maybe doesn't have the answer in that session, but then this person are gonna like go out the session actually thinking or pondering on those questions. And I think that's very, very powerful. So I use questions all the time in all of my sessions. I have to admit that there are one sessions that are okay, after 3 or 4 big questions, then we go to also talk about the moving part, the action plans, or actually again question something that it's already brought or proposed in the table, which those ones are more dynamic and based in practice. But mostly I always tell my leaders, like the first sessions, at least the first 6 or 7, it's going to be all about questions, because I need to actually be creating this safe space for you, but also because if you don't know yourself, and one of the best ways for knowing ourselves is through curiosity and through questionings, because sometimes we don't even have, or we choose to not have the time for reflecting and questioning, or maybe, let's face it, we're very lazy to just start, oh, let me just question myself today, so being able to have this space and this safe space and this person that is just like, hey, about what I just heard, or I don't know if like just were very conscious about what you just mentioned, but can I just ask you something about what you just said? What would you think, this or that? Or, hey, let me just ask you, what's the purpose behind that? Even those tiny questions, because sometimes when I say I do very powerful questions, people are like, oh, give me an example of a powerful question, like this lady is gonna just throw at me, like, I don't know, a question that I'll never ever have received in my life. And maybe I gotta tell you, if I'm inspired, you'll receive those kind of questions. But sometimes the most simple ones are the ones that we're like, oh, really? And it's like, yeah, like, why would you do that, right? Or what's the main intention of doing that? And it's like, well, now that you ask, and I'm like, no, the real intention one, not the automatic one, not the ethical one, not the this was supposed to be. Like, just take all of those narratives or those adjectives and just answer it from the core, right? And
Yes.
sometimes they're just like, well, now that you answer me, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, I don't want to even do it. And I'm like, okay, now we're talking. So it doesn't matter if it's like a simple or a very elaborated question. I think questions are gonna be the things that will move us and will basically just like, take us away from just be stagnatic or being like static, in not actioning or actually not having a better answer for us.
Yeah. So you mentioned reflecting. I think that's also a powerful component that goes with the questioning. Um, Sometimes even at the beginning uh, is my practice to ask people to reflect on something, and then we'll play with the questions afterwards. But I like what you talk about with the accountability partnering that you provide as a coach with your client, that you're not there just to be their yes person or their sounding board. You're there to actually, in a professional way, challenge some of the things you hear that they say. And quite often we don't hear what we're saying until somebody repeats it back to us. Right? We don't really understand it. So I think that's a very powerful approach in itself. I want to change track a little bit here, or tact a little bit. Um, AI, it's such a big topic in the world, rightly so. It's reshaping much of what we're doing, how we're being. Um, I'm wondering how it factors into your life now as a coach. Is it impacting you at all?
Well, I let's be honest, right? I think innovation and technology is something that will always impact us
Yes.
because we're very close to that and because we get a lot of resources as well on that.
Mm,
So, but also being clear, there are some things that you can replace,
right.
and that is called intimacy, right? I think that sometimes for more than technology that you have, I think that this is amazing for automating, processes, or
Mm,
for actually creating methodologies that can be more visible and clear to your client. Or maybe, just like, hey, just listen again, like automating ourselves, okay, just go there and like watch these, or with AI, what cannot be possible, basically you can have me 24/7 and be and not be like actually in real life. But to be honest, there are some things that I don't think AI can replace, and that's like the authenticity of the moment,
mm,
the power of creating something right now
yes.
that maybe with AI you can't create, right? Because that is called human presence. And that I think that it's a very powerful gift that cannot compete, with anything else. Also, I see that a lot of clients right now they are using, for example, ChatGPT for answering some questions, some hard ones. And they are like, oh, you asked me about my life purpose. Or actually, you told me to define my leadership purpose statement. I think I got one that sounds powerful. And I'm like, oh, is it? And then they give me like this amazing elaborated, wording phrases. And I'm like, oh, wow, where does this come from? And they were like, well, I just, used a little bit of help from ChatGPT. And then I'm like, okay, great. You can have that. And it's going to sound beautifully redundant. And you can put that in your office if you want, or create your values, or create your, mission statements through that technology and put it in your walls. But what's that going to actually mean to you? If we don't do the work ourselves, from our mind, from our soul, from ourselves, I don't think that actually we are getting in touch with our true selves, So that's another thing. We can replace doing the work with other technologies rather than choosing to do it ourselves.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time as usual, so moving towards the end of our conversation, unfortunately, but if I restricted your response to 3 pieces of advice for leaders based on your journey, your experience, your wisdom that you've acquired so far in your career, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to a leader?
That's a good one.
That's a big question. I'm sorry.
A big one and a very specific one. Okay, so the first one would be dare, to getting into a beautiful process with yourself. Like, do not limit yourself, or do not restrict, or do not avoid the process that needs to be done. It doesn't matter how many years you have as a leader, or the industry as well, because then I have that justification, right? No, but we come from another industry, right? So it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter the years, it doesn't matter at all, the status or the position or the stage of life that you are in. Yeah. I think unleashing yourself and surrendering to say, I'm gonna do a process, and I'm curious in getting into self-discovery, because again, you always will keep learning from yourself. It doesn't matter how experienced and how old you are, you will always get some truth to know about yourself that you can actually receive a lot from that. So do not limit yourself or put in a place where you think you don't need it anymore. Like, keep being open and surrendering to these kind of processes. Then second of all, of course, I would say keep questioning. Questions, please, like questions first thing in the morning, questions whenever you feel that you're not getting to the places where you would like to be. It's like, I love this, but it's very true. It's like, maybe you're not getting the answer, or at least you're not being able to figure it out, that answers. It's not because the answer doesn't exist or because you don't know. It's because you're required to do a better question. And that's so true, like, try to always play to actually say, okay, this was a question that I needed. That's like a beautiful art. And then the third one, I would say, get a coach. Okay, I do think that every single leader, again, I don't care who you are or how many years you have in the industry or how many mentors do you have, honestly, or education or certifications. Honestly, I think we all need a coach for a different seasons in our lives. So maybe right now you just need a coach, for a safe space and listening, or giving you some powerful questions, right? But then in another stage, you only need a coach for having or creating accountability with the processes or with the plans that you are achieving, right? Or putting in practice. Or maybe you need a coach right now in order to make you question if you're in the right path, or actually put you in a place where you get connected again with your purpose, or discover what you want to do in your next stage of life. So I truly believe that we all need a coach in every single season in our lives.
Yeah, wonderful. Are you working on anything additional to your book at the moment? Is there anything in the pipeline that we should know about?
Well, yes, I'm hosting this leadership retreat this year, 2024. This is gonna be in May. Amazing. It's gonna be from a Thursday till a Sunday. And it's gonna be a full safe space where you are gonna be immersed there as a leader, and you're gonna be able to network with other powerful leaders as well. And we're gonna be touching different topics in this retreat that it's from the part of authenticity and vulnerability, but also we put a key element here that I think it's great, that it's called the humor. How we can use the humor as well in our leadership, you know? Sometimes we think that we need to be very, 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 very serious or strict as well. But what if we know that humor can also like make us create genuine and like stronger connections with our people as well? And having fun as a leader is part of the process as well. So yes, I'm doing this retreat collaborating with other great colleagues. It's gonna be 3 of us, and we're hosting this amazing retreat that, by the way, is gonna be in an exclusive Paradisaic beach in Santo Domingo, República Dominicana.
Very nice. I'll get the details off you later, and we'll put it into the show notes so we can advertise it for you. Where can people go to learn more about what you're doing, the wonderful work you're doing, particularly if they want to connect with you?
Yes. So I think my most active social media will be LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like where you can always find me, and I'm actually answering my own messages and inbox, which you can find me like Mariana Macias, was my name. And also Instagram. I'm also very active, and Instagram is at Marianita _Mac coaching.
Wonderful. We'll put it all in the show notes. So listeners, please read the notes, connect with Mariana, and you're doing some incredible stuff. I really enjoy talking with you. I'm going to be waiting for the book to come out, and we'll be back in contact for sure. So I really appreciate you coming on the ET project. It's been a wonderful conversation. Our listeners will have got so much from your insights. So Mariana, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Wayne. This was an amazing and a very productive conversation. I enjoyed it as well so much. And you'll be receiving an exclusive copy, okay? Whenever I publish my book. So thank you so much for the invitation. And I really hope that all of the leaders listening to this great podcast will be benefited and learn something today.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.